Hey folks, Joe Valley here. Welcome back to another episode of the Quiet Life Podcast. Before we go into our special guest today, I want to give a shout out to Cody Sanchez and thank her for coming on our podcast and allowing me to present to her mastermind. Cody has amassed like 2 million social media followers in the last couple of years, and it's all about buying boring businesses. So a good shout out to Cody. If you're interested in something like that, go to contrarianthinking.co or contrarianthink.co. One or the other, you'll find it. Go to Cody Sanchez. I don't even know the right name of it. Tim's smiling in the background. Is it thinking or think? I'm not sure. Cody's awesome either way. Our guest today is somebody that most people in the e-commerce space probably know, a guy named Tim Jordan. He does so many damn different things. I'm not even sure how to introduce him. So I'm just going to bring you on, my friend, and we'll talk about what you do. Welcome to the Quiet Life Podcast, Tim.
Thanks for having me. And it's terrifying that this many people know who I am.
Yeah. They know where you live. They know your wife and kids' names too. That is kind of frightening.
That's weird. Well, I say that kind of in jest, but also serious, because if I'm that well known, then it makes me wonder if this industry is that hungry for someone, right? Like I hate the term tallest midget, but sometimes it fits. Like, am I just the tallest midget? I'm not sure.
I just had a conversation with somebody earlier today. Stephen Pope from my Amazon guy. Do you know Stephen?
Yep.
We're talking about something not quite related to podcasting and whatnot. He goes, Joe, listen, I want you to know that when I was on your podcast, we had 11 new clients signed up in the 30 days following. And that kind of blew me away, because we are definitely, a tiny little podcast. And so the fact that we have that kind of influence, it kind of blows me away, in the same way that, there's people that are much smarter, bigger, and more experienced than you and I combined. But we're still having some impact on people's lives. So good on you for doing that. Why are you so popular? Why do people like you so much, Tim?
Well, I don't know that people actually like me. I think that I'm a glutton for punishment, and I say yes to everything.
Oh, that's a problem. They listen to you, though.
It can be a problem. And I think that one reason people listen to me is I never have a sale. I never have a pitch. I'm never trying to sell something. And for a long time, I thought that was a weakness of mine. And I've had people recently help me understand that it's not necessarily weakness. I recently read a book called The Go-Giver. And The Go-Giver is a book that basically identifies some of the most successful people in the world that weren't pitching something. They weren't looking for immediate monetization on something that they were doing. They were just trying to give. Now, I will say that that's not me patting myself on the back, because that was never my plan. My plan was not to give. My plan was to, or not to give to create some special value. My plan was to give because I felt like I was playing in a sandbox that I didn't deserve to be playing in, which is entrepreneurial e-commerce world. And I had to give up a lot to be allowed to play in the sandbox, right? Like, I shouldn't be here. But if I can provide some value and provide some value to other people, to businesses, to whoever is in the space, then like maybe I can hear something and learn something for my own business. So it all really started, my whole e-commerce journey, by just trying to get involved with the community and offer as much as I could to get something in return, whether it's value, wisdom, relationships, whatever it is. And it just kind of spawned into this thing of like, hey, Tim's kind of a no BS guy and he's learned a lot. Like, let's kind of listen to his crazy, weird opinions.
Well, the more conversations you have, the more your business grows, but not immediately. That's the thing, right? It does take time. Yeah. It comes back to eventually. I still have things come up on that pipeline from, conversations that I had 5 or 6 years ago. In fact, that happened last week, and it was actually a conversation with a buyer, right? And now they want to do something else and kind of have an offshoot of Quiet Light. So the value, we measure our success in the number of conversations we have, more than anything else, because that leads to the ultimate goal of growing our business. But let's talk about what the hell you did before e-commerce and what you really do in e-commerce now, because it's still a bit of a mystery. Because I see you all over social media. You're always giving a presentation. You're always somewhere in the world. You're in lots of social media stuff with Norm, the beard guy now, Norm Farrar. But where did you start? I think you said it was, as a firefighter. Is that right?
Yep. And if I walk through this whole history, you're going to be the first one that I publicly talk about what it is I actually do in this space. So prepare yourself.
If you're comfortable with that, I want to hear it.
Hey, we'll jump in there. But yeah, I started off as typical smart kid that was lazy, terrible student. College, didn't know what I wanted to be in life. And I worked actually as a volunteer firefighter in college. And I did it because I worked for a little town that would pay the volunteers per call. So basically, they had to incentivize people to sign up and respond to these calls. And I worked in a small college town, and it was a complete hustle. It was a complete racket because we would get paid $50 for every call that we responded to, which was very few. They'd send us to the Volunteer Fire Academy, which isn't like a real fire academy. For any of you volunteers out there listening, I'm sorry, it's not the real thing. But we went and did that one summer, had some fun, hung out with some buddies. And then we would get all of our girlfriends in college to burn popcorn in their dorm rooms. Right. Okay. So they would
I was already thinking, did you go out and set fires all the time?
Oh, dude. Well, we wouldn't set fires, but we would get the fire alarms to go off. And we figured out in certain dorms, if you turn the water on really, really hot and walked away for long enough, the steam would set the alarms off. And of course, everybody responds and we get paid our $50, right? And it was fun. It was kind of an adventure. We did do some firefighting and things like that. But when I left there, I never thought I'd do it again. I moved down to North Alabama and was working a regular business job. And every time a fire truck would drive by, I felt like a little kid just watching after it, wanted to be on it. Mm-hmm. So I went that career path. I applied for the fire department here in Huntsville, Alabama with 2,500 other applicants, and they only hired 25 of us. And I got on my first round. So I became a firefighter EMT. I eventually got into.
Let me ask why though? Why you out of 2,500? Were there personal interviews, one-on-one conversations?
There was. Listen, when you have 2,500 people, it's a ridiculous, grueling task. We had to do psychological examinations. We had to do ridiculous background checks. We had to do physical fitness tests that are some of the most grueling you've ever seen. And look, I'm not a picture of physical health, but they dwindled it down to about 400 of us that took the physical tests, and I was the second fastest to finish. Damn. Now, I nearly died doing it, but it was mental. It was like, I'm going to do this. Then we had to go through rounds of interviews. And basically, I think that I was able to convince the interview board that like this was serious, right? I didn't just go in and give them the plain old answers. I just spoke my mind, gave them what I thought to be the truth at the time. And I was the only person in my class of 25 that got hired my first time around. The other 24 guys that were in my hiring class, they tried for 2 or 3 years, or one guy for 11 years to get hired on. So, man, I have no idea. I just got lucky.
I don't know if you just got lucky. I had the feeling it was a combination of the person or people on the other side. I mean, you had to qualify, right? You had to pass the physical and mental and psychological tests and all of that. But then in the hiring process,
it was the interview. I'm sure I crushed the interview. I sat down.
It's exactly what it is.
Yep. It was absolutely 100% being able to read the room, explain to them what they wanted to hear in a way that was equitable and honest. And that got me the job. I'm sure of it. It was the emotional intelligence.
Yes, very much so. I talk to my kids about that all the time. It's the EQ that's going to get you where you want to be in life. Because, like you, I didn't do great in high school. I didn't do great in college. I didn't have a real job, Tim, until I was 29 years old, right? Real job, meaning something that lasted longer than 5 or 6 months. So I hear you. It's the EQ aspect of it. The people on the other side that were interviewing were thinking, can I have a beer with this guy? Can I hang out night after night after night with this guy? Because that's what it's going to be. Can I trust my life to him as well? So good for you. Good for you. But you left that all, and now you're in the e-commerce world. You've been in the e-commerce world for how many years now?
Well, actually, I was in the e-commerce world before I left it. I'll leave you a teaser because we don't have time for it. But I had some other businesses that I started because firefighters on our shift schedules, we work 24 hours on, and then we were off for 48. So essentially, we'd work 2 days a week. I'd come in on Monday and I'd be off Tuesday and Wednesday. And I'm back on Thursday and off Friday and Saturday. And we had a lot of time off. So we all had part-time jobs. And I built up a hardscape company, a company that did construction for outdoor hardscapes. We did everything from outdoor kitchens to rock fireplaces to commercial retaining walls. So my part-time job at one point, I had about 45 employees and it was a disaster. We were making crazy sales. And I never made a dime off of it. In fact, when I finally, after like 6 years, gave up that company, I sold every bit of the equipment I had and barely paid off the loans for all the equipment loans I had and never paid myself a dime. It was brutal, but I learned a lot about
great. Yes, great lessons there, right? You can't really achieve your highest success by being successful all the time. I don't think. You really got to screw up a few times too.
So have you seen the movie War Dogs, the movie with Jonah Hill and that other guy that are selling guns to the US government?
Yes.
Well, that was me. Now, I wasn't selling weapons, but I was selling other things to the State Department, right? So not the military, but everything else.
Okay, so you fabricated a war, right?
I did not fabricate a war, but basically the State Department would use small contracting companies and small procurement companies to source anything and everything they needed for consulates, embassies, or like the air bases in Iraq and Afghanistan. So this is about 2012. I start this and I'm learning how to buy Russian dump truck tires and ship them into Afghanistan. I'm buying diesel generators from the UK and having them shipped to Iraq. And things got really, really crazy there. I could tell some stories about that. I ended up co-founding a company in Kenya, where we opened up a company in Kenya with some local business owners there, where we were buying Caterpillar construction machinery in the US, painting it, polishing it, fixing it up, and shipping it to Kenya. And when you ship a 90,000 pound bulldozer from Huntsville, Alabama to Nairobi, Kenya, that's an experience. But working with that procurement company and then the company in Africa, I started getting exposed to global supply chain. And I started doing crazy things like flying to China without a visa my very first time because I didn't know I needed a visa to figure out how to buy construction equipment there, talking my way into the country illegally and buying equipment. And that company, still as a part-time thing, led to this idea of I have access to a lot of products I can sell online. So I started selling. I actually put a Craigslist ad out and I said, I need someone to teach me how to sell on eBay. I didn't know you could sell on Amazon. Guy comes in, he says, you can sell on Amazon. He started teaching me how to do it. Started selling a lot. Like our first year, we hit like 2.7 million in sales, but mostly wholesale.
What year was this?
This was like 2016, but this is profitable, very profitable. And then we quickly got into private label and I said, I want to build my own brands. And I had all my contacts in China, started doing well there. I opened up a sourcing and shipping company called Hickory Flats. Some people recognize that name. So this is again about 2017. And we had an entire office and operation in Shanghai. We had 3PL warehouses and importing operations here in the US. We were a NVOCC shipping company, a licensed shipping company. We eventually opened up an office in Guatemala as a sourcing company. We worked with local artisans to produce fair wage, fair trade products for e-com sellers, including some of my own brands. I exited that company in 2019, but what I basically sold it. But what I found out was that to market that, I had to do content. And I'm actually better at content than I am sourcing and shipping and warehousing. So I really didn't have a game plan except selling my own brands coming into 2018, 2019. And people started hitting me up for content collaborations. So like Manny Coates, who is the founder of Helium 10, brought me in to do a project. And I wrote the script for and kind of ideated the Project X case study, which I think is the largest case study in e-commerce history that did with Helium 10. Eventually took over his podcast, the AMPM podcast, and just started doing a ton of content for people because... Is your content all the written word, or do you find the spoken word translated into the written word, or videos? Like when you say content, I'm better with videos. Yeah, okay. I'm better with videos. Now, content is more education, and I can speak something to you and then someone transfer that into writing, or I can sit down with other content creators and help them strategize, like not how to produce the videos, but what is the framework? Like if we're going to teach somebody to start a business, what are the 48 steps they need to take and be aware of, right? And it's no hype. It's no get rich quick schemes. It's all like legitimate. This is really hard, but if you do it the right time or the right way, you only cry the first time, right? It's hard, but you can do it. So those things that in 2018, 2019 weren't very popular to hear, I was talking about those. And now people realize that a lot of this scammy crap out there was scammy crap. And they're going, oh, well, like here's legitimate content. So for a couple of years there, I was having a hard time figuring out how I was going to monetize that. And I honestly wasn't worried about it. I started a small coaching program. I started free content that we labeled Private Label Legion as an online community. But the majority of my money I was making was just selling brands online. And the reason I was doing this content was I was learning, right? So if I put myself on camera with someone really smart, I would learn something. If I went to a conference and spoke on stage somewhere, I would get to be at that conference. I get to learn from 20 people smarter than me. And I'd sit in the back of an Uber and learn from someone with, some piece of wisdom that I needed. So I was doing this to grow my own businesses, my own brands, by basically trading content and time. So we talked earlier at the beginning about like giving value to get value. And I was doing all of this stuff for free. I was doing all this content, and it put me in these circles of people that I had no business being with, people that are way smarter and more successful than me. And I kind of got drug along. Now, about 2019, 2019, I flew 250 to 260,000 miles, not award miles, actual miles. These are two events that I went to speak at. These are like meetings I went to. These are consulting things that I was involved with. It was a lot of flying.
I think that's when I saw you last at one of the $1 billion summits down there. Can I just, I want to interject with, how do you do that and manage the businesses that you're operating, and also, be the family man that you are? Or did you not have children at that point? I think I've seen pictures of.
Yeah. So I've got a 5, 7, and 9-year-old. So 3 kids and a wife that works full time, and she was going to school full time. She decided to get her 15th degree, it seems like. She just graduated as a nurse practitioner now. And I will say that, to answer your question, how did I do all that? I'll say I didn't do it well. Okay. I made a lot of mistakes. So not all of my business ventures were good. There were a lot of things I put on the back burner that I shouldn't have. There was a lot of stress with the family sometimes because I was traveling too much and I wasn't learning how to balance my time and have quality time when I was at home. And I'm still learning all of these things. So I will say not well. What I did learn to do was identify what I'm exceptionally good at, stick with those things, and outsource the rest, which I'm terrible at delegating.
Repeat that again. Because I think this is where most people fail, is that they don't learn what you just learned.
Yeah, figure out what you're magical at and outsource the rest.
Exactly.
Figure out how to push it off. I am so disorganized. I'm looking down at the bottom of my task manager here on my window screen. I see 48 Slack messages. I see 1,700 odd emails. I see 32 notifications in Monday.com, and I'm not going to look at them. I'm not even going to open them up. I was talking to my team, my physical in-office team this morning, and I said, guys, remember, I'm not opening that up, but I have virtual assistants or EAs that read all of those and send them to me on WhatsApp. So if you don't send it to me on WhatsApp, I'm not going to see it, and I'll answer, and they can answer for me. Like, I figured out, if I just admit that I suck at so many things, which all of us solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, we suck at a lot of things. But if we figure out what we suck at and figure out how to outsource those or avoid those or just let those things go and figure out what we're magic at, then we're going to be pretty successful.
I kind of like the way you're saying it in terms of figuring out what you're magical about. I've always said, be sure not to promote yourself to your own level of incompetence, because when you do, and you're going to be unhappy with what you're operating, and your business is eventually going to decline, and then you're going to be left with something that's less valuable. Similar. You know that you're incompetent at responding to 1,700 emails because it takes up way too much time, and maybe you're not good at writing emails. So I'm great at writing emails, but I'm a terrible procrastinator. So I say, I know exactly what to write here. I'll get to it tomorrow. And 4 months later, I still haven't responded to it. How many VAs do you have? And are they Filipino VAs? Where are they? Like, who are you hiring?
I'll get on my high horse for a second and say, I actually hate the term VA. I think them as team members. Like, I feel like sometimes we label individuals that live offshore as virtual assistants, which is less than a team member. I use VA because everybody knows what that means, but I have project-based virtual assistants. I have personal executive assistants across the multiple companies I'm involved with, probably 15. And they range from the Philippines to Venezuela to Chile to Central America, kind of all over the place, and probably soon Eastern Europe.
How'd you find them?
Man, just talking to a lot of people and trying a lot of things. Onlinejobs.ph was a disaster. But if you go through Multiply Me, I love the guys at Multiply Me, and you pay an arm and a leg and you get one person that's really good and you can't live without them. Or use an agency in Mexico that matches you with people in Venezuela, and you find a good one, and they have friends in the different industries. And, it's just all word of mouth now, right? I don't think there's one tried and true way of finding the perfect offshore employee.
Okay. So you figured out what you're magical at, and that is creating content. Yes?
Nope. Not even that.
All right. Where's the magic?
I am, oh gosh, this sounds so conceited to say. I won't say magical, but what I have found to be the best at is being a big picture visionary and understanding the viewpoint from a lot of different angles. So the way I figured this, and that's why I was actually good at content, was because I understood the tool. And I also understood, from the eyes of a seller, how do you merge these two? From the eyes of a factory owner that's producing a product for an Amazon seller, and from the eyes of an Amazon seller, how do you meet in the middle? So I could create content that was like equitable to both. And I could understand point of views that were kind of all encompassing, right? So my ability to be an exceptional visionary is what made me decent at content. So in 2019, I was at a show, and there was a CEO of a company, Ping Pong, right? You've heard of Ping Pong, the fintech company.
Yep.
And they had just launched, the huge Chinese company just launched in the US. And I'm talking to the CEO, and she takes me to a steak dinner and talks my ear off for like 3 hours. Actually, she asked questions. I talked her off for 3 hours, just my opinion about the industry, about the space, what's going on, what it's like to be an Amazon seller. And for a number of months, she would call me occasionally, say, I have an idea. And I'd spend an hour or 2 hours on the phone with her. Man, I beat her up. Everything you're doing wrong. She asked me if I'd be an affiliate. I said, I'm a terrible affiliate. She said, can my affiliate manager call you anyways? I said, sure. And I talked to this guy and I told him, your affiliate program is the worst. Even if I like being an affiliate, I'd never sign up for it. And here's why. And my point, I said it respectfully, but I was trying to be helpful. And eventually she says, Tim, like your ideas are actually pretty good. And like, you're helping us understand things we've never understood to be the case, because we're a Chinese fintech company trying to move to the US, and none of us are online sellers and none of us are American, the leadership team.
Yeah.
She said, can I hire you as a consultant? I said, consultant, what does that mean? You'll pay me for this free advice I'm giving you? She said, yes. And she offered me a consulting contract with that single number. And I told her, I said, I will not work a schedule. You can call me when I have free time. The number she gave me to not have a schedule and not be required to do anything was higher per year than my entire full-time firefighter salary was that I'd walked away from 12 months before. I said, holy crap, this isn't going to last long. They're going to figure out I'm an idiot, but I'm going to milk this for everything it's worth while I'm there. And I got to start seeing the other side of e-commerce, because e-commerce isn't just the product. In fact, the product is the byproduct of what e-commerce is. The product is just the output. E-commerce is entrepreneurial drive mixed with a market of people that want to buy, mixed with the facilitators of all of those. So Amazon isn't e-commerce. Amazon is the connection between the people that want to buy the product and the entrepreneurs and the brand holders and even the big brands that make that work, mixed with the other facilitating components, which is places where you can advertise or launch methods or all of these different omni-channel things, right? So like the product is just the last piece. Everything else is what has to happen. And that's what e-commerce is. So by getting involved in like this position that I had no business being in, looking behind the scenes and under the hood of a financial technology company that's a global company, like I started learning, okay, here's something unique that they can offer to facilitate this other side, right? They can use this to facilitate something. They don't understand that. So I started creating new product for them and new marketing for them. And then I figured out, well, if this person partners with this person, right? So this fintech company partners with this software company, they can create something unique that facilitates this even more and everybody wins. So I was able to set up some industry leading partnerships that most people probably will never hear about, except for other industry insiders that went, holy crap, how did that happen? Like, who was involved in that? And they're like, this redneck from Alabama, Tim, who sells some cigar accessories on Amazon and like does cheesy YouTube videos. Like, he figured out how to make that happen. And when I go back and look at it, it wasn't just that I had this visionary idea of how to put all these together. I had to have an understanding of the components, and I had to understand how everybody received value by forming a partnership. And I could sit in the middle and I could negotiate on everybody's behalf and say, I know this is what you want, but they're not going to give it to you because it's terrible for them. But if you'll add this to this and they'll add to this, and I created some big partnerships. So some of the other components of those partnerships that I was forming, and these aren't partnerships like you see in the space of, hey, let's do a partnership, a blog exchange. Like, I'm talking about real deep partnerships. Some of the other stakeholders would come to me and say, hey, we didn't know you're a consultant, but we saw what you did. Can you come work for us? And I'd say, no, it's a conflict. And they'd come back to me a month later and said, well, we talked to the CEO at Ping Pong and she doesn't care. Can we offer you X? And I'd say, well, you're not going to like it, but if you charge me, or if you pay me X a month and you don't give me a required number of hourly meetings and you don't make me do certain things, you just kind of let me go wild. And they said, sure. So I started picking up more consultancy. So it's been wild because most people don't see what happens on the back end. A lot of the companies I don't even disclose that I work with. Now I'll disclose to my other consulting clients, say, hey, if you want to work with me, by the way, I do work with this person, and then I don't think there's a conflict, but you need to know. And some of them that are public are like PickFu. PickFu is a great company, and they came to me 2 years ago and said, whoa, holy crap, we saw what you did. Like, what do you think of PickFu? And I said, I love PickFu. And if I had some ideas of how you could expand this, like, let's brainstorm. And I said, well, we'd love to pay you just a small retainer a month to just keep us top of mind. And for 2 years, they haven't fired me. So I guess there's positive ROI, right? Even though it's not true employment. I made some mistakes like getting involved in org charts. So Sellers Funding is one I publicly worked with. And I was a consultant for them for a long time. And they wanted me to come on board. And I said, well, you can make me an executive, right? Make me a chief growth officer. And I built out basically the framework for partnerships, affiliates, events, kind of got into some of the branding stuff. And I was the worst employee ever. I spent 18 months there as a C-level employee, which is cool because I learned a ton, went from like 30 employees to 200 and, basically got to that Series A round that they raised. And I learned a lot, but I realized I'm a terrible employee. So I stepped down from that and I continue on as a consultant with them, helping just their team touch things. So what's interesting is the more that I do in that space of consulting, the more people want me to be involved with them. And I've work with logistics, fintech, digital marketing, a lot of software components that I get to have my hands in. And it's like I'm just stuck in this flywheel of the more I learn, the more I can make pieces come together. So probably 70 or 80% of what I do now is business development consulting and largely helping them understand, helping the service providers understand, how do you take what you have and actually make it work for the sellers? And then educating sellers of like, this is what's actually available in the space. This is why it's so exciting. Like, here's what you should focus on. Get rid of shiny object syndrome. Like, this is what this big world looks like. So the world of acquisitions, like you're involved with Quiet Light, like you have this piece of understanding of the world, right? And like the power of the acquisition landscape in e-commerce and what that means, not only for the acquirers, but also the brands that are selling. And like, you understand that. So by working with, maybe someone in the acquisition space, I pick up a little bit of knowledge. So all that, not to say I have some amazing skill or I have some amazing, ability to decipher information. But what I realized is the same way that e-commerce changed my life because I opened up myself to learn, right? Like I'm not a genius e-commerce seller, but the way that I really got started in communities, I went to my first conference. It was at the Orlando Gaylord Hotel Convention Center. And there was a small Facebook group for the group or for the conference attendees, small Facebook group. And I didn't know a soul there. The first night I landed, got to my hotel, checked in, and I posted in that group. I said, hey, I'm new here. I don't know anybody. The first 10 people that respond to this, I'll buy you a steak dinner tonight at the on-site steakhouse. Like instantly 10 people responded. And I thought, I don't know if this is crazy or stupid or what, but I went and I sat at this table with 9 others. There's 10 strangers, or 11 of us. Some of those folks I'm still best friends with. Some of those folks I shook hands with once and I never met them again. But the people that I built a relationship with that steak dinner helped me to understand the things I needed to scale my business. And I've kept that philosophy ever since. It's like, if I give and give and give and just put myself around the stuff, I can be successful. So whether it was being an e-commerce seller and just going to conferences or giving away free content to get involved with other people, or even what I do now with the consulting, what I realized is the power of e-commerce is us. It's networking, it's meeting together, it's meeting in the middle, it's figuring out and learning from each other. I know 2 very well-known PPC companies in this space that on the surface look like they're competitors. Deep down, behind the scenes, they're best friends. One of them shares all of their SOPs with the other company, like their internal SOPs. And they figured out like, hey, if we work together, we all build this thing bigger. It's not about grabbing a bigger piece of the same pizza. It's about building a bigger dang pizza. Right. So I get excited, whether it's consulting or selling my brands, because I figured out, and I want everybody else to do this too. Like the more you just embed yourself in the community and think of this as a big giant galaxy that we're all getting swept up in. And the more you give, the more you receive. So the consulting thing again happened by accident, right? It was just, hey, I'm giving for free. I'm trying to learn. So if I give a little bit, I get a lot, and then got swept up in this crazy thing. And now I'm excited because I feel like I can see a big picture of what's happening, and it's changing the world forever.
And I want to talk about that. But first, I want to say to all of the introverts that are out there that go to conferences and want to stay in your hotel room or see a group of people talking, and you're like, oh, they're already best friends. I can't just go say hello. You're dead wrong. And you can just offer up, a steak dinner for 10 people. I think that's a brilliant way to do it, Tim. And you're not an introvert, but
I absolutely am.
You
I'm
are
a massive introvert. So
no kidding.
Everybody has introvert and extrovert mixed up. And it took me a long time to learn this. I'm an extroverted introvert. Now, introvert doesn't mean you're shy, and extrovert means you're outgoing. It talks about the energy that's required. So some people receive energy by being outgoing. I can be outgoing, but it sucks the life out of me. After Prosper, I had to come home and sleep for 3 days. So I can be outgoing, but it sucks my energy away. But even people that are shy, even people that don't want to get involved in stuff, what's crazy about the e-commerce world is there are small masterminds. There are Facebook groups where you don't have to talk to a single person, but jump in a Facebook group, a free Facebook group, and start giving your knowledge. right? If somebody asks a question, you know the answer to it, answer it. You can start building community and hide behind your laptop screen. Like this crazy world of e-commerce is so diverse and so unique that you can be involved in the community without ever having to step foot outside of your comfort zone. I think it's totally better when you do step foot out of your comfort, but it's a unique space.
I think you do have to step outside your comfort zone. Since we've just gone through, 24 months of the pandemic, events are just starting to open up. And as much as I don't enjoy preparing for them, especially if I'm speaking, it takes a lot of work, as you know. There's such value in meeting people face to face over Zoom or over virtual events. So I think the in-person events, if you can get there, then get there and do that.
I was at an event last week in LA, and when I stood on stage and I was talking to, I don't know how many people it was, I said the most valuable things that I've ever learned at conferences weren't from sitting in the crowd listening to someone on stage. It was the Uber ride with two strangers going to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Where it was sitting in a lobby and talking to a stranger and having that personal communication, or the hand that I shook in an elevator because we were both wearing the same badge and we talked in the hall for 12 minutes. And later on, we connected on LinkedIn and become best friends for 3 years.
Yep.
Right. Like that's the value. So in-person events are absolutely important. But if you can't get to those, you don't want to get to those, you're not comfortable with that, it's not an excuse, because there's still so many other ways you can connect with people. And I believe that we as entrepreneurs, like I said, we suck at so many things that if we don't surround ourselves with some sort of support system or mentorship or just peers, just friends, like we miss a lot of big opportunities.
100% agree with that. 100%. The last e-commerce business that I sold, which was 2010, it was me and my website developer. And all we did was fight. He wanted me to spend more money. I didn't want to spend any more money. And I didn't have a network. I launched it in 2005, sold it in 2010. I didn't have a network. There weren't mastermind groups back then, or at least that I knew of. And it was a very lonely, frustrating world. So I think today's world is 1,000 times better. Tim, people are always asking me what I think, the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months, what's the future of, e-commerce and the M&A world. Everybody's worried about, we're going to have another crash and how it's going to impact valuations and things of that nature. I still think we're at the very, very tip of the iceberg in this world that we live in. You said before I hit the record button, you're kind of in the belief that, we've changed things, we as in the e-commerce folks, from the way history has been. What do you think? What do you think the future holds for this world that we're now sort of creating and dipping our toes into?
I think that it depends on if you look short term or long term. All right. Now, long term, I'll say this, it's exceptionally exciting. What I was saying before you recorded, it's like commerce has been done the same way for thousands of years. People make something, they acquire something, they sell it locally. They sell it in their village or their store or their city, whatever. It got a little bit better, over the past couple hundred years with global trade, but still, once you got your hand on something, you sold it locally. It has only been in the last 10 to 15 years where anybody with anything can sell to anybody anywhere in the world with a device.
Yeah.
Right. And only like the past 5 years has that become really tangible. So you think thousands of years versus 5 years, and it'll never go back to the same. Like we, the pioneers of e-commerce, the stay-at-home moms that figured out how to sell on Etsy, combined with this guy that didn't know how to create any software code. Now he has this tool that facilitates it to these, investment funds that want to start investing in e-commerce businesses. Like all of this is happening right now. And we, as little bitty components in this big grand world of e-commerce, are literally changing commerce forever, which is really exciting. Now, you can't make that big of an adjustment without some pain. And things are changing fast. So short term, if you ask me to look into my crystal ball and talk about e-commerce, I think there's going to be a lot of successes and a lot of failures, a lot of pain points. And I think those failures are just part of being successful. I use the example all the time of a baby learning to walk. The baby doesn't just stand up and walk, right? It tries to sit up and it falls, and it tries to sit up and it falls, it tries to sit up and falls, and it stands up and falls, stands up, falls, takes a step, falls, takes a step, falls. And if you're not going through that falling stage, you're never going to get to where you can run. And e-commerce is going through some of those things right now, whether it's figuring out that FBA was not 100% reliable for everybody's supply chain solution. COVID hit and we went, crap, now what do we do, right? The warehouses are full. If we look at even selling styles, what worked in 2016, I call it the Jungle Scout method. See what everybody else is selling well, try to get a piece of it. Like we have to go through the growing pains of figuring out that doesn't work anymore. Like you have to actually gauge competition. You have to find something that people want that they're not being sold. We have to figure out how to look from one platform to another, figure out how to focus on Pinterest and figure out what's important there and be the first one to launch this brand on Amazon, which is scary because if we're the first person to launch that product, do we know people actually want it? You have to learn how to do search volume discovery, right? We have to figure out that the solution is not always, well, let's just sell in all the countries and all the marketplaces. We have to figure out exactly how to do that. We have to figure out that it's not just about revenue, it's about profitability. We have to figure out it's not just throwing up some cheesy thing on Amazon and hacking the entire system with keyword stuff titles. We have to figure out that if somebody actually wants to acquire this brand from us later and we want to sell this brand, there has to be stability. There has to be an actual brand there. But we also have to realize that not every e-commerce journey starts with building a brand before the product. Like there are a lot of things that are having to be learned. And we also see, I'm going to say something that's unpopular, Joe, because I know you work in the acquisition world and a lot of what you do successfully is you match brands with potential acquirers, right? And those acquirers lately, the majority have been the aggregators, right?
Not with us.
Not with Quila. Okay.
30% of our transactions in 2021 were aggregators.
Were aggregators. 70, well, yeah, I'll say this in general about like your type of industry. Everybody got excited about the aggregators. And I remember when the aggregators came out, like Thrasio, they were pitching the line of like, your business wasn't worth anything and now it is. Right. And I hated that. I hated that so much because
I was just rolling my eyes. I wasn't on camera at the moment, but they said more than that. But continue.
But I was very fearful of this because I saw the aggregators making a ton of mistakes. Like 12, 18 months ago, I said, there's going to be some problems here because a lot of these acquirers are acquiring things that are junk. It's stuff that looks good on paper, but it's not actual. So there's going to be a little bit of slowdown there, right? Yeah. There's going to be a little hiccup. But if we look at the next 4 or 5 years, and we get through these hiccups and we get through these little pain points, it's massively exciting. And I say that because the world is looking now. Yeah. I don't just mean that from the point of like big headlines of big valuations and big brand sales. Not only, remember, it's not just about brands, it's service providers too. If you look at PPC agencies that are being sold for massive valuations,
absolutely.
It's the small brands that are selling for, it's the software companies that are now receiving ridiculous funding from legitimate tech VC funds. Like it's all really, really cool stuff. And not only is it just like the aggregators are looking, it's big brands. You know, when Peloton looks at a yoga mat brand on Amazon and takes it seriously and makes that acquisition, like that lifts the ceiling for all of us. Like it changes the dynamics of everything.
No question. They're what they've done, what the aggregators have done in the last 5 years, just sort of opening the curtain to the fact that these businesses have value, can be sold for value, and create a competition so the values have risen as well.
Exactly.
That, along with people like yourself who have matured in the industry and are running legitimate businesses and legitimate brands.
Now you said matured, but that doesn't mean I am mature, right? Like, let's just put a differentiation. I am maturing, but I still wouldn't call myself mature.
You've grown. You know what it was back in 2012 when I started at Quietlight. I sold my business late 2010, took a year off, and then joined the team in April 2012. The average transaction size was $125,000. Some of them were as little as $5,000. A lot of them were content sites that were being flipped at the time.
Well, I was buying content sites back then from Flippa and places like that.
Yeah, and we were selling them. I miss content sites. We don't have the majority of our transactions are now e-commerce related. If anybody's got a content site, we love content sites. Reach out to us. We think there's so much value in them. Buyers love them as well. But back then, go back 5 years ago, the businesses just weren't as good as they are today. And the aggregators opened people's eyes to the value of FBA businesses. In 2016, I went to an event, eCommerce Fuel. It was in Savannah, Georgia. So I drove from North Carolina, and I was so excited. I had a little booklet called 10 Steps to Selling Your Amazon Business. And I got them all laid out on the table as people were entering the conference. And then Andrew got up and gave his State of the Union address. And the basic message was internally for eCommerce Fuel that, maybe 15% of them sold on Amazon and saw value there. And that was about it. And I was completely deflated. right? Probably a year later, I had one of those first conversations with RJ from One-on-One Commerce. Do you ever talk with them back in the day when they started?
No, but I was aware of when they sold to Goja.
Yeah, my first conversation with RJ, I basically told him he's crazy and full of it, and it's never going to work. Turns out I was right about One-on-One Commerce, because his plan was to buy 101 FBA businesses in 24 months. And here's the kicker: he was never going to log into a single one of them.
Man.
So number one, there weren't that many FBA brands available back then. And number two, the mistake that a lot of them are making is, as you said, they were buying low quality businesses, but they didn't know how to operate them. They weren't operators of them. They figured, if Tim could do it, I could do it too. Turns out that you're a lot smarter than you think you are, and that there's nuances here that have to be played upon in order to grow this business properly. I'm going to throw a warning out because it's coming to mind right now, because I want you to share this with FBA sellers as well as they're selling direct. And the reason I rolled my eyes when they said, hey, we're finally bringing value to these businesses, what they often say is, just work directly with us, avoid the broker fee. We pay all cash and close in 30 days. And there's so many untruths to that statement. The warning I want to put out here, because I have you as an audience, and you've got a much bigger audience than Quiet Light does with our little podcast here, is that what's happening with the aggregators now, they're growing so fast, Tim, that they're hiring people like crazy. And these people are it's just a job to them. It's not their passion anymore. It's not like you're operating your brand and it's your passion, it's your baby. You're going to make sure you don't screw up. It's just a job for these people, and they're learning. And 2 times in the last 12 months, one particular aggregator that I won't name here anyway, first they ran out of inventory. So they had an earnout situation. So they don't pay all cash. So it was an earnout situation. This was an electronics brand that was a hero SKU, 70% hero SKU. But the deal that we had was that our clients must have view access to seller accounts. Until all notes or earnouts are paid. And my client kept saying, guys, you're going to run out of inventory. Order more inventory. Like, yeah, we got it. This is the brand manager. So my client got to like 94% of hitting the revenue benchmark in order to get paid the earnout. And then 3 to 4 weeks before they got there, they ran out of inventory. And so the client didn't get paid out. And it was $300,000, but we had a second benchmark in there and other clauses. They got paid, but the underling, the low-level manager ran out of inventory. Second situation, where it was a much smaller earnout. The manager sent the inventory to the wrong country. They sent it to an island country. They sent it to Australia instead of to the U.S. So, all the revenues in the U.S.
It was close.
It was close, right? It's, not, it's still English speaking, right? So I guess it's that.
Well, kind of.
You kind of. Well, yes, there's very many differences between meanings. But so always have a clause in the contract that says if there's an earnout seller note, stability payment, anything like that, that if they run out of inventory for any sort of unnatural reasons, right? Disasters, pandemics, things of that nature, all bets are off. You owe the earnout, you owe the seller note, you owe the stability payment in full. So totally long tangent there. Sorry about that. It's a really important one to anybody listening then, though. You got to have that in there. All right. So the future of e-commerce, we're just at the beginning of it. It's going to be huge. We're changing the way that it's been for 10,000 years, and the future's changing because of ex-firefighters learning what they're really, really good at and outsourcing the rest of it, right?
Or just BSing our way through all of it.
Well, that's how we all start, right?
It's kind of like you fake it till you make it, right?
You fake it till you make it. It's true, and it does work. Just make sure you're not harming people along the way. Still do good.
That's right.
Still help others. You admitted it. You didn't fake it with that steak dinner. You said, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I'd like to invite 10 of you who do to steak dinner, and I'll pay for it.
Well, I do think that the main message is like, yeah, maybe we're all a little bit lucky to be landing here, but it's not just luck in time frame that we landed in this year and this opportunity, but we're also lucky in that there is so much opportunity in this space that we can find what we're good at and stick with it. I know a lot of people that cannot run a business to save their life, but their product development ability is massive. There's a million companies out there looking for a great product developer. There are people that are great educators, and there are people in this space looking for educators. There are great financial minds that don't have a creative bone in their body, but they can partner with very creative entrepreneurs because this world of e-commerce is so wide open and still looking for so many holes to be filled and so many brands to show up and so many experts show up. Like, we can pretty much pick what we want to do and we can be wildly successful in this space because it is a brand new space. And, the world is looking for it now. When we look at COVID, there was a lot of problems that happened with COVID, right? We had supply chain issues, and now are we moving to a global recession? But the other thing that happened, I can kind of explain with my father-in-law, who's an old grouch and he hates the internet. He can't stand it. Never buy anything online. I ain't putting my credit card in there. And when COVID happened, lockdowns happened, he needed to buy a headlight for his wife's car and he couldn't go to the auto parts store. And I was talking to him one day. He says, "Did you know you can go to this site called eBay and buy a headlight for a car?" I said, "Are you serious? I've never heard of this." He said, "I used to pay $14 a bulb and I paid $9 for 2 bulbs. And it showed up at my house 2 days later." I said, "Holy crap, Jack, never heard of this." But now he only buys online, right? So like, it accelerated a demand that was kind of already there. It's convinced people that like, this is the real deal. Yeah, we've had some hiccups, but it's also indoctrinated this world into like, hey, technology mixed with good branding, mixed with good products, mixed with this entrepreneur hustle. Like, we think about Amazon as a giant behemoth, but remember, the majority of sales on Amazon are from third-party sellers. They're from stay-at-home moms and guys working a second job and firefighters that walk out of the fire station and live on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
And it's a pretty cool time to be here.
I think the thing that my high school baseball coach used to tell me is applicable here. I wasn't very good, but I worked my butt off. He said, "Joe, the harder you work, the luckier you get. You are one lucky son of a bitch." Because I hustled. I worked harder than everybody else. What you do is all of that, but not with your head down. I think in this world that we live in, you can't just work hard with your head down, because you might be, as you said, working on the things that you actually are not very good at. But when your head is up and you're talking to other folks and it's, oh, that's interesting, then you might be better at branding or product development or PPC. There's a place for you in this world because there's so many different spokes in the wheel of e-commerce. It's not just you have to own a brand. There's so many different things that you can do. So that's awesome. We're running short on time. I could talk for another hour, and we might, but I want to ask you quickly, Walmart. I keep hearing this guy named Norm and this guy named Tim talk about Walmart. What's going on there? Do you think that Walmart is a place where FBA sellers should be looking at? Is it the next iteration of Fulfilled by Amazon, or is it just that I happen to see all the ads come through at once for it?
I will say this. I don't even like what you asked. Is this where FBA sellers should go to Walmart? I don't even like identifying people as FBA sellers.
If that's all they do is sell their brand on Amazon, they're still entrepreneurs, but they're selling their channel is Amazon.
I tell people all the time, we have to stop being Amazon sellers.
I hear you. They're entrepreneurs. You start being
product sellers that sell on Amazon, like think bigger. So Walmart is not just hey, this is where you go from FBA to here. It's like, if you're a product seller, if you're a seller of a physical product, you should be looking at a lot of different places. Amazon's magical for a lot of reasons: the infrastructure, the logistics, the marketing ability, the traffic. And when you look at number 2, it's Walmart. And Walmart's doing some crazy things right now. I get to work directly with a lot of Walmart leadership, Walmart.com leadership. I think how I have to say this politically correct, in ideating how to create a better opportunity for third-party sellers, right? So kind of a little bit of an advisory role. And the things that I see them doing in the background are game-changing, and it's awesome. I'm not going to say that Walmart's ever going to be bigger than Amazon. I'm going to say one's better than the other. But remember, eBay used to be the biggest. Now nobody talks about it. So if you're going to invest in more opportunities for the reasons that we love marketplaces, definitely start paying attention to Walmart. Also pay attention to D2C, right? When it's time, whether it's Shopify site, whatever it is, think about omnichannel, think about going wide and not always just going deep. And remember that the more real estate you can take up, the more your business is going to be valued at.
No question. And if you're multi-channel and you can manage it well and still be happy.
Yeah, don't do it too early. Don't get that shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, right? I talked to a guy that his business is, I think he launched it in September of last year, and he launched in the US, and now he's launched in Canada and the UK and Germany. And I'm like, you just launched in September? Doesn't it feel a little too early? And he's added 15 new SKUs. I'm like, okay. Yeah, my point is not that, but if you have multiple channels of revenue on and off third-party platform sellers, your business is going to be more valuable. It used to be, Tim, that I could say easily, if you've got a Shopify store versus if you sell on Shopify versus it's not even selling on Shopify. I'm waiting for you to correct me, or if you're using the Amazon platform, that you're going to get 20% more because of the aggregators and people opening their eyes to the value of these sellers that are these entrepreneurs that are using Amazon as their primary source of revenue. The values have come up quite a bit more, but I don't think it's going to last. There's been a bit of a frenzy. I think that going beyond that one platform is the most important thing. And I think, I keep seeing the Walmart stuff, and I think owning the customer is always the most valuable place to go. Let's talk about some of the things that you're doing today, though. You and I have talked about Quiet Light sponsoring the trip that you and Norm are doing to Mexico. You're host of the AMPM podcast, and you've got Private Label Legion. Can we hit on all three of those before we wrap up for the day?
Yeah, so Private Label Legion is just a content community. We even had a paid mastermind that we're canceling, right? We're going to make everything free. We're just trying to put out the best content from the best thought leaders in the space. Norm Farrar and I are partners on that. We are collaborating with Amy Weiss and a bunch of other people in the space to do the Mexico trip. Excellent. Mexico trip's coming up in June. It is a sourcing trip similar to what I've done in China and Norm and Amy have done in China for many, many years, that I've also done in Latin America starting several years back. And we're taking a bunch of people to Mexico on an all-inclusive trip to teach them how to sell or how to buy in Mexico, how to source in Mexico. We have some of the best thought leaders in Mexico coming to train. As part of that, we are launching the first of its kind trade show in Mexico City for small and medium-sized manufacturers to sell to small and medium-sized businesses like us. So think of like
that's exciting.
ASD or Canton Fair in Mexico City.
Yeah. So we're not, if I was a brand owner, I may be able to source it's sourcing manufacturers from Mexico or South America, as opposed to China exclusively, right?
Correct. So we're bringing in some of the best manufacturers that are coming in to essentially do a trade show in Mexico City. And if you're a brand owner, you can come down. It's evolatam.com. So Evolution Latin America is kind of the short version of that, EVOLATAM. Or if you want to come down and spend multiple days with us in addition to the trade show for this very limited workshop with some amazing people, that's themexicotrip.com. And it's going to be good. Mexico is going to be a lot of fun. I still host the AMPM podcast, which I took over about 2 years ago from Manny Coates, one of the most successful and long-running podcasts in the space. I do all of my behind-the-scenes consulting for service-based companies, agencies, things like that. I collaborate with a lot of people, do a lot of content, like case studies and such, with some other larger audiences, I'll say, that I come in and help pitch in on. So it's a lot going on, but it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot going on, and you're a father of three as well, all at the same time. So
That's
pretty
right.
Pretty exciting time in your life as a father and as an entrepreneur. Tim, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to connect, what is the best approach? How should they find you?
Probably the best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn, because my Facebook's full, or go to privatelabellegion.com or thelegion.group, which is a link to the Facebook group, Private Label Legion. We keep most people out of that. It's very cleaned up. We probably deny 70% of the people that want to be in that group, just because we want real engaged folks. And we have some of the best engagement of any Facebook group in the e-commerce space. So you can find that again, Private Label Legion on Facebook, or go to thelegion.group and it'll link you there directly.
I love it. This has been awesome. Thanks for spending an hour of your day with me. I appreciate it. I know there's not a lot of payment from me compared to what Ping Pong and some of the others are paying you. I appreciate it.
Well, Ping Pong's old. I dropped them like a bad habit. So, that was probably rude to say, wasn't it? But that's all right.
They got you into the space. You helped them. They helped you.
They helped me understand the consulting thing, which has been a lot of fun. So I do appreciate that.
And where your talents really lie. So good for you. Congrats. All right, man. Unfortunately, as you know, I've got a personal conflict. I won't be at the Mexico trip. I really wanted to go, but we'll have a team down there. So anybody listening that wants to learn how to source in Mexico and then go over to Cancun and spend some time with these guys as well, I'd highly recommend it. And tune into the AM/PM podcast and take a look at the Private Label Legion. I think you guys get a lot of benefit there. Tim Jordan, thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.